After hours of playing Planetside 2, there's still some things I haven't figured out yet. For example, what does it do when I turn off a laser sight? The cone of fire sights does not change, so does it just remove its downside of being noticed at a cover? I don't know. And what does it actually do when I bind to a spawn tube? It says I can spawn from anywhere now, but I can just do that without binding it. And when the enemy infiltrator binds himself to your spawn tube, you just get that red icon. What does that even mean? It just permanently sits there to remind you that enemy infiltrator went inside and violated your spawn tube. And if the planet's gravity is pulling down on a dervish, but Newton's so low says there is an equal and opposite force, why isn't the planet being pulled for the dervish? I don't know. Just like that, when it comes to NSO, people still have no idea about the faction. And it doesn't help that there is this fake-ass individual on YouTube spreading a fake news about NSO. But don't worry guys, because today I will be addressing all these myths about NSO that are floating over internet, so you can truly appreciate how fun it is to play NS operatives. And for the starters, the reason that the planet isn't falling into dervish gravity is because there's another dervish right on the other side, whose gravity is pulling it from the other side as well. So the first misconception that we'll go through is that half the NSO arsenals is useless. And I do have to clarify at first that some of the NSO weapons actually are good, such as XMG-100, which is accurate and versatile, CB-75X, which is controllable despite of high DPS, VAR-50, which is basically NC assault rifle, and the Harbinger sidearm, which has its own cult whose members mentions about it literally anytime NSO is mentioned. But the question is, what else does NSO have? PMG-200 requires unrealistic skill from a user with its extremely small damage per magazine for negligible return. AO-100 is the embodiment of an underachiever. SR-150 does a measly 50 more damage than a default sniper rifle, and it's just redundant. And there are many more weapons that makes you wish that you never got emotionally invested on NSO so you could just switch to playing NC. But let me tell you, these weapons are not useless like many people think they are. Because for example, they can be still used to grind a weapon directive, some of which are very good. And as a smart Indian guy on Facebook puts it, you cannot truly be useless because you can still be used as a bad example. So I hope you can understand that this statement, half the NSO weapons are useless, is a myth. And the truth is, half the NSO weapons are garbage. Now, ever since its release, Chimera has been called out for being the worst tank. But let me tell you, as somebody who played NSO for many hours, this is a myth. And to really understand this, you have to first analyze its shape. Because other tanks, it's just 20th century generic tanks. But Chimera is 26th century revolutionary design. In fact, the design incorporates what is known as a biomimicry, which is a practice of imitating what is in the nature for an innovative design. In this case, design of Chimera imitates that of a possessed upside-down human. Of course, with that you can see that devs had a real intention to place a secondary turret right here to insinuate certain male body parts. And this may create a problem where if you shoot at an air for this instance, this erect cannon just blocks your view. There are also notorious flaws such as a lack of unique ability and massive hitbox. But Chimera is certainly not the worst tank, and I do in fact have this clip that will prove to you that Chimera is the best tank in this game. Well, maybe not the best tank, but it's certainly not the worst, because people don't truly understand how to use Chimera effectively. What you're supposed to do is to first understand that all the flaws of Chimera makes it worthless, therefore it's expendable. That way you can use it for a suicide mission. Well, if you're using other tanks, it'll feel like you're wasting it, but it's Chimera, so it's a minuscule price to pay. So go spawn a Chimera behind enemy armor column and charge into enemy armor column, because Chimera is never meant to survive. Now, another very common myth that exists is NSO has the worst infiltrator. This is because NSO's infiltrator cloak is infamously more visible than that of normal faction's infiltrator. You just have an increased chance of being detected, and even if you're crouching stationary, it's impossible to pass by an enemy like normal infiltrator can. This myth also has to do with NSO having access to a limited number of weapons. For example, NSO only has one unique bolt-action sniper rifle, while other factions have 4 of their own. And of course there is PMG-200. What do you think about NSO Infiltrator? May be true and undeniable. Do you know what is also true? Discrimination against robots. That's right, every day human soldiers harass NS operatives through a random friendly fire and team kills, while pretending as if it was an accident because they couldn't see the obvious faction color. It is also suspected that even Daybreak Games discriminates against robots at a corporate level, as every other bundle they release contains no content for NS operatives. On top of that, people call you by the word robots, which is very derogatory. Come on guys, we're not robots. We are cybernetic organisms. Another myth that needs to be debunked in this video is that NSO has no anti-air. And people who believe in this myth says only actual AA that works in this game are Strikers, Lancers, Masthead or Double Bolster Max. And NSO has none of them, so they have no actual AA. But about this myth, you really have to look at what kind of players are saying these things. Because these are the people who play infantry 24 hours a day and rage tells anyone who kills them. And you know, they fail to understand that this is a combined arms game. Combined arms, guys. So when you are being spawn camped by an A2G main, you're supposed to die to them like a man, because it's a combined arms game. And on top of that, these people are noobs because they already have a decimator that can one-shot all the spawn campers. And it's clearly a skill issue that they can one-shot A2G with a decimator. It's a skill issue. These people also are incompetent at flying, because when you get informed by A2G, you're supposed to be putting a dervish to counter them. And if you can't beat A2G with your dervish, it's clearly a skill issue, because you suck at aircraft. And absolutely not because A2G weapons annihilates dervish. So do not ever listen to these people's claim that all vehicles should be deleted from this game. Now so far, all the myths that I've mentioned was found from an extensive research on internet. But in order to really address the myths that you may have, I've also asked questions in social medias. So let's go over them. And this is a myth, guys, because NSO players are the most sincere people you'll ever meet. And you know this because NSO has no cheaters. Like, when was the last time Flying Defector killed you? So you can just relax and know that there is no way that robots are secretly preparing a war against 3 factions. by collecting human behavioral data, steering vehicles, and infiltrating into civilian factors. I really don't know how this myth originated, and I've never felt this way. In fact, other day I just hopped on this random Chimera and he kept shutting down randomly on the middle of the road. So I had to spank him a couple times so his power turns back on again. And it was like the opposite of being cracked. And this leads me to the final myth. NSO is fun to play. And this is obviously a myth, guys, because half the NSO arsenals are useless, has the world's main battle tank, world's infiltrator, and no viable anti-air options.